Just as you saw in the lecture string manipulation with PHP inbuilt functions, PHP provides very many functions to manipulate arrays out of the box. In this lecture, you're going to learn about just a few of them, and then I'll show you how to find more information about the various functions that are available in the PHP documentation. Let's start with the function to count the number of elements in an array. The name of this function is count. I'm just going to get rid of this echo count and then give it the array that we want to count. So at the most basic level, the count function will just take one parameter, but actually it can accept a second parameter, which is to tell us the mode at which it should count the array. So let's start with this first. We're going to count the number of elements inside of the color array. Obviously, we know that the elements here are 1, 2, 3. So let's do a refresh on the browser. Okay, before that, I just want to exit so that we don't see the other part of the code. Okay, so it tells us that there are 3 elements inside of the colors array. So let's do a count on students. Then do a refresh. It tells us there are 4 elements inside of the students array. And the reason why it tells us that there are 4 elements is because we're using the normal modes. This just counts only the elements that are within the first array, which is student. So we have element 1 is an array, which is the first line. Element 2 is line 6, and element 3 is line 7, and then element 4 is line 8. So if we want to count the element inside of the sub arrays, then we need to tell the count function that we actually want it to act in a recursive way. So if you can see, the default mode is to count normal, which is just count the elements inside of the outer array. But now we want to do it recursively. Go inside of the inner arrays and then tell me how many values that we have there. So we're going to say count recursive, then do a refresh on the browser. Tells us that there are 19 elements. Okay, so we can either use just 1, which is the same thing as the constant count recursive, still get the same value. So, but if we omit that, then it is just going to actually count the outer array. It won't do it recursively. The next function we want to look at is the PHP function to see what is the current item in an array. All right, I'm just going to duplicate this and then comment this out. All right, so we're going to say current, and then we need to do a var_dom on this actually. Let's say var_dom current student, and then exit. So this gives us the very first element inside of the array. So another useful function is the array keys function. So what this function does is actually returns us all the keys inside of an array. The value that will be returned to us is also going to be an array, but it will contain all the keys inside of the array that we are trying to check. Let's say print r array underscore keys, and then we pass it the array that we want to get the keys. Let's do a refresh. Okay, it gives us the key of all the arrays. If you look at our array again, line 5 uses the key, line 6 uses the index key, line 7 also uses the index key, line 8 uses a name key. So we assign a name to this particular value. So that's why in the output we have index 0 is 0, index 1 is 1, index 2 is 2, index 3 is name. Okay, so what if we want to search for a specific value inside of the array? So here we know that there's name. So we can give it a second parameter and say, give me the key for this value Terry. And then we try to do a refresh now. Tells me the key for the value Terry is name. Next function we want to look at is the array push function, which is used to essentially add one or more elements to the end of an array. So let's say we want to add some elements to the array that we have here. Comment out this line and then also comment out this. So we have a students array here. So what we want to do now is actually append some more elements to this array. So we're going to say array push. So the first parameter that we need to pass to this function is the array that we want to add to. So in this case, this will be students. So we want to add to students. What do we want to add to students? The next parameter is what we want to add to the list. All right, so let's say I want to add 3 more arrays like this. So I'm just going to grab this from here and then we'll just edit it. Okay, so I won't make you watch me doing this. I'm just going to edit it and then continue. All right, so I'm adding 4 more arrays to the students array. So if we do a count on the students array now, you should see that the value should have increased. All right, let me refresh the browser. They say right now we have 8 elements. Previously, when we counted without the recursive, it was just 1, 2, 3, 4. But now we have added 4 more elements to the students array. And then if we just comment this out and then refresh again, you will see that all the elements now appended to that single students array. And by the way, just as a side note here, if all you want to do is add 1 element to the student array, then it will be very resource consuming for you to use the array push function. So what you want to do then is actually just use the square bracket to assign 1 more value to the students array as opposed to using this array push function. This is the recommendation from the PHP documentation. So what we'll do in that case will be I'll call students and then open and close bracket and then pass in another array or just a value like so. And mind you, this is for a situation where we just want to add 1 value to this array. So I want to append 1 value to this array. I just need to do this using the square bracket for performance reasons. So it is more efficient doing it with the square bracket as opposed to the resources that you need to call a function. If I just change this and then let's refresh, right? You can see that that item has been added here. So you want to add 1 item to an existing array, you use the square bracket. You want to add more than 1 item, use array push. Okay, the next function that we want to look at is array pop. Array pop is a function that is used to remove and return the last value of an array. All right, so right here, the array that we have here, students, the last value will be joy, and then it will be the one with age 31. Let's just make this age 39. If we come here and do array pop, so let's say array pop and then give it students. So what this does is remove the last item from the list. Let's do a refresh and see. So this item, remember, I just changed the age to 39, but if we refresh now, it's going to be gone. The last item is Jude because we did array pop. Okay, so we can actually display the value while we do array pop. Take this and say print R. So it actually returns to us the value that we are removing from the array. So inside of a program, we can actually use the return value to do something. So you see right here at the top, this is the array or the value that was removed from the list of students array. And then the last function that I want to discuss with you about is the end function. This function is used to get the last element inside of an array without removing the element from the array. So if you remember, array pop removes the element and returns to us that particular element. And will actually return to us the last item inside of the array, but it doesn't remove it from the list. So let's see this in action. End student, and then we can call the exit function. Or because we want to show that it doesn't remove the list, there's no need to call the exit function. To refresh, you see, it gives us the last element, but here the element is still preserved. It is not being removed from the list of students array. So these are just some of the functions that are available. There are quite a lot of functions available in the PHP documentation. And right here is the documentation. What you need to do is come over to the documentation section and then do a search for array functions. Okay, so the returning result, click on the first one, array functions. And then you can already begin to see a list of functions here that can be used to manipulate arrays. This is the one that we saw, array keys, which returns all the keys or a subset of the keys of an array. So just look at the right here. There are a lot of functions here that you can use to work with array in PHP, and the documentation is actually pretty self-explanatory. So for example, if we want to check if a specific key exists inside an array, we can use the array key exists function. So this is going to check if the given key or index exists in an array. And then if you scroll down, it tells you the parameter is the key that you want to check for, and then an array with key to check. So this is going to return to us true or false. And then some basic examples here. So we have a key here first, and then we have a key here second. So if array key first exists inside of this array, then you're going to echo the first element is in the array. So take your time, go through each of them one after the other. Spend some time reading through it so that you become much more familiar with the functions that are available.